Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn even more money. All in one place, and it's for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup looks like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts, Q&A, and polls has let us be creative on a whole other level. I highly recommend you give it a try. So download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Welcome back. Access and Tea podcast fans, Danny here. Thank you so much for coming back. If you're new here, hi, my name is Danny. I have a lot of new people who are listening. And if you're new here, I talk about MLM content, more specifically anti-MLM content. If you don't know, I was in an MLM cult called Worldwide Dream Builders, which is a line of affiliation of the Amway Corporation. I was also in a DV relationship. So I'm very passionate about these two topics. And my biggest goal has been to be able to give people a platform, and especially anybody who comes on the podcast who is in these MLM cults. If you don't know, if you have never been in this type of an environment, you're not allowed to talk until you have some level of quote status. But essentially what that means is you have a level of brainwashing. You say what they want you to say. And if you're in a DV relationship, of course, you feel silenced. So my goal is to be able to help people feel heard. For every single person who has come and talked to me, you guys are amazing. I'm so grateful. So you guys, thank you so much. And for everybody who just continues to support this podcast, thank you all so much. We have back with us today another person who was in Worldwide Dream Builders. It never ceases to amaze me, you guys, the things that this organization puts people through. This one is going to be a wild one, you guys. We're talking some pretty intense, unfortunately dark stuff. Just with that being said, please understand, I am not here to defame Worldwide Dream Builders. I'm not here to defame Amway. I'm speaking on personal experiences, personal opinions. Okay. If you want to join these organizations, I'm not telling you not to. You're an adult. You can make your own decisions. I am saying that I think you should listen and hear these people out. You may have a different perspective after you hear, and you might proceed with caution. So, not here to defame anybody. Do not sue me. Okay. Today's guest, you guys, I'm so excited because this just is a whole different perspective that it just brings to light so many things that I had questions about that just needed answering. I have Ashley with us today. You guys, she is amazing. Please listen to everything that she has to say. So Ashley, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we've talked so much before. I mean, not like incredible extents, but just so many things that you have taught me. I was just telling you even before we started recording that everything that you told me has just stuck with me for a while. So I'm really excited. But I have to ask, what compels you to want to share your story?
Yeah, so, it took a while after leaving to really understand everything that I went through and just really break it down and see the toxicity, the manipulation. I just want to share because once I started to realize that, I was seeking out any podcast that was talking about multi-level marketing, but specifically worldwide. And so I'm so appreciative I literally searched worldwide in Spotify or WWDB or something like that, found your podcast, and it just helped me understand my own experience better by hearing other people's experience. So my hope is that people, will hear this and be able to heal through their experiences, but also, find it in their heart to share their story with their friends and their family so that they don't get caught up in this as well.
I'm so grateful again that you are here and wanting to add to this community that we have built up here of people who've been through the same things.
Yeah, and it gives, because we were so isolated. We weren't allowed to share things. So you could have been going through some really dark stuff. I would have said hi to you at a function and not know anything, So it's so important to have those conversations and find people who have gotten out and talk with them too, It just helps piece together what you went through.
Yeah, you're right. When we say that we can't talk to people, we don't mean that we couldn't talk, but our conversations had to be very, very superficial.
Or to edify. You were constantly told to edify your upline. So anyone, you could have said, my sponsor is so and so, and I would have been like, wow, they're amazing. Like, you're so lucky, and like it just, yeah. I was talking with a friend the other day, and because we're good friends. We both got out and we're working through things together. Like, just as things come up, we kind of bring it up and ask, like, what was your take on this happening? And so anyways, one of the things was about not just the functions, like the regionals, the ones at the hotels and stuff. And I was
Yeah.
like, I always showed up with a facade because I knew I was not allowed to bring any negativity. Not that I wanted to be negative, but that meant you're not sharing anything that happened in your life that you're going through or struggling with that's gonna be perceived as negative.
Yeah, you have to leave it in your car, leave it at the door. Don't bring it in here is what they would say. And it's sad because I feel like we were all going through so much. We were none the wiser because we couldn't be, because our communication was linear. It was in an upward direction, and that's the only place it was allowed to go. In fact, I think a lot of us, our upline, were going through things too that we did not know. And that's almost scary for me because my direct sponsor married this amazing woman. Jess came on and told her story, and Jess was in an abusive relationship with my sponsor. And I never knew. Did I know he was toxic? Yeah, because, most people in Worldwide who are in your upline and they show those traits, you kind of can gather some things are happening, but I never knew the depths.
Yeah, it is really sad. I like, yeah, the amount of things now that have come out to me. There was abuse that was going on in my upline. I mean, I felt it personally. I had my original sponsor, Joe, and he ended up leaving. I was in it for 5 years. So from 2015, and I left in 2020. And so I don't even remember exactly at which point he decided to leave, but he had already broken a platinum downline. And so by the time that he decided he was going to move on from the business and do some other things career wise. This was not going to be his focus. And he asked me to meet him for coffee, and he was just like, I'm making some, changes in my life. I'm going to be moving on, but I still support you in doing this. And I want you to, achieve everything that you want to achieve in this business. I know that you can. That being said, I've had a long talk with his direct sponsor, Rachel, and our upline. And we think it's best that I'm not going to stop registering. So meaning he's not going to stop taking, getting paid off of his downline platinums. So he was still going to be a registered IBO, but since he wasn't active, he couldn't take that upline role for me. So we all talked and we agreed that I'm going to sign you over to Rachel and let her be your direct sponsor, because otherwise she has no vested interest or financial interest to continue helping you. So basically what he was saying is that since he was leaving and he couldn't eventually take the role of the upline board plan or however that progressed, he would still make a commission off of any PV I did. He essentially got in the way of commission to Rachel and not being active. So I'm sure they convinced him that wouldn't be fair. And why would Rachel help me anyway if he's getting direct, PV from me? So, I was so sad because I was thinking, like, you're throwing away the biggest opportunity like you have. So I was really sad to see him go. He's such a great person, but I was also very apprehensive about being directly coached by Rachel. One of my original goals was to go Eagle before her because I did not want to be coached by her. I saw a lot of inconsistencies in what she said and what she did. And granted, I'm a rule follower and she's a proclaimed rule breaker. She kind of took pride in being someone that went against the grain, but for me, I'm like, some things are a matter of integrity. And I saw a bit of a lack of integrity there. And there was just something in me that was not wanting to be personally coached by her. But
Yeah.
in the spirit of the toxic positivity that we were all brainwashed into, I was just like, okay, you've got to make this relationship with Rachel work. You've got to be that downline that you want to have duplicated in your downline. That's what we were taught. And that was one of the big forms of control too, that kind of kept us all in line, where it was like, you make one wrong move, that's the way you expect that your downline is going to do that to you. You don't put your PV in on day one, that's what your downline is going to do to you. So that was one of the form of control tactics that they used.
A lot, but you're not wrong. That those are the manipulation tactics that they use to make you stay in line, to keep you at what they need you to be. Because, quote, that's how you want your downline to be. You need a downline who's going to be positive, not a negative. And if you're negative, that's what you're going to duplicate. What's interesting is it didn't all start out like this, you guys. We get into this business and we don't see all this at first. I have to ask, how did you get involved in Worldwide, and how did you get introduced? How did you meet your sponsor?
So way before Worldwide, we were hanging out in the same friend group. I have nothing bad to say about him. He is honestly one of the most sincere, like, kind people that I've ever met. And I actually held a lot of respect for him throughout knowing him as a friend. We joined a Bible study. Me and my best friend at the time joined this Bible study that he was also going to, and I would later find out a few other people in my upline and crossline were also going to this Bible study. And this Bible study, we were very much encouraged to share what was going on in our lives and be very vulnerable, which is a whole nother story. I grew up Christian, and I am still Christian, but leaving Worldwide has given me a different perspective on some things that go in the church these days. So I think putting yourself in a place of vulnerability in a mixed group that has to do with Christianity, maybe it doesn't always put you in the safest position, So at this time, I had been working in the fashion industry for the past 4.5 years. I achieved my goal, my dream career. And then I realized, all I do is work. The people I work with are so toxic, and I want to see my family more. Like, I need to become an entrepreneur. And actually, it didn't just come to me like that. I started listening to podcasts, and there's this one podcast, I don't know if it's still around, Entrepreneur on Fire. And the host there always talked about his mentor, and everyone that went on there talked about how they had a mentor. So I remember journaling and telling God, like, God, I need a mentor because I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to, work for myself, be able to see my family more. Like, family was the motivation, family time. And so I had shared that in a Bible study. And then one day my friend Joe told me, like, oh, I just got this mentor. He's a multimillionaire. He flies, his private jet, and he's mentoring me so I can retire in 2 years. And I was like, what? Like, that's my goal. Like, that's what I want to do. And then he was like, really? I was like, yeah. And then so we go and we sit down, and he's like, I could introduce you to him if you want me to. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I didn't ask. I think I might have asked, like, yeah, what does he do? Not in a like critical way, like just a curious way. And I think he said something in the like medical field, which I now realize he was referring to our upline's day job or day business, not Worldwide. And so that's what I realized later. So anyway, so we go through the process. When they say the process is qualification, no, I was launched in a week and a half. Like, it just happened so fast, but I thought it was like God answered this prayer. And so I don't want anyone who's Christian and in the same situation, because this was really the tactic that worked on me, was the God brought you this opportunity narrative, because you're going to share that with them. Like, yeah, if you're a Christian, yeah, I've been praying for an opportunity like this, and so I didn't question anything else. I was like, yeah, one was presented to me, that's it. And they do upfront teach you, do not Google this. You're not going to get accurate information. You're going to get the most accurate information from the person who has the balls to speak to you face to face and tell you how they make money. Okay, that makes sense, if you don't think about it too much. But There are people who manipulate, there are people who lie. So that's not just a fact to be taken as fact. There are lots of caveats to that. Stephen Hassan in the Bite model, who, talks about cults and the things that qualify cults as cults. He talks about thought stopping statements. And those are one of those like thought stopping statements, that you will accept, especially if someone's coming off very friendly and nice and sounds like they know what they're talking about. You're not going to continue to explore your concessions to that statement or anything else. So I will put the blame on me. I did not do any more of the research because I was like, this is it. And how easy was that? It was presented to me. I got this opportunity and I took it. It's only going to cost me $1,000 a month. At that time, that's not how it was presented. I did not sign up for $1,000 a month. Yeah. So to me, that was a total godsend. And you know what? Just so anyone who's listening, if you ever tell them that you prayed for this, you feel like maybe God brought you to this opportunity and you start to realize this is not actually that opportunity, they're going to tell you, well, is your God confused? Those were actually trainings that we heard, coaching that we got to say that to people. So is your God confused then? Because I thought you said that he brought you to this opportunity. What changed? My God isn't confused,
Yeah.
And so that was really where it just really took hold of me because, if you think you're following God's path, then there's a lot of things that you'll overlook or not really look too deeply into.
Yeah. Absolutely. You have this belief that you are so passionate about, and they use that against you. They literally said, I have this opportunity. And then they will continue to say that God brought this into your life. Like you're here for a reason. Realistically, all they did was they sought out an opportunity and they did it. When you have people like this, in this type of an environment, using your faith against you. Unfortunately, this is so common. So again, I am so sorry that you had experienced that. But another thing that you said, the couple things that you said, of course, but you brought up the bite model. We love the bite model. Again, we're talking about this for fair use and commentary purposes, but please go to freedomofmind.com. Read up about the bite model, you guys. Even go to YouTube and look up Stephen Hassan. Like some of his interviews are incredible. Like he talks a lot about how he was in a cult and he had to be away from the cult in order to see what was going on. And he was actively in this cult and his dad was trying to get him out of it. Like he even says that my dad wasn't going to be able to get me out of it. But there's a lot of things that they do that this bite model talks about. A lot of it's information control as well. Within the first 30 minutes, you have actually the Syrian guy. He was in my upline telling you not to go listen to your grandma. Don't listen to anybody who's not here because they don't, quote, know what they're talking about, which then they go to, don't Google it. We're giving you our faces. You guys can see us. They're giving you a screen name. Don't listen to them. So, of course, what are we not going to go do? We're so groomed in this process by this point. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, totally. Like, I'm not going to go listen to somebody on Reddit. Like, that's crazy. When now I realize that there's a power dynamic and they scare you. And that's a lot. And that's just the beginning. That's just how they were able to kind of, I don't want it to sound derogatory because it's not, but like pull you in basically. They made it sound fantastic, especially if you're already looking for it. So how long did it take you to find out through your process, if you can remember, when you finally found out that it was Amway and Worldwide Dream Builders?
So either the second meet and greet, if it was at that meet and greet, it would have been very quickly talked over, but at the board plan, for sure, at the end. So I'll tell you a little bit about my first board plan. I was told to dress business and I end up coming to the home of, they were maybe Eagles at the time. So this is Stan and Kristen's home. I saw Kristen and I recognized her from the church I attended for 5 years previous to the church I was attending at that time. And she was a little bit younger than me. And I remember just sitting around with a group of friends at like some youth event or something. Not that I was a youth, I was a young adult at the time. But I remember sitting around and hearing her speak and thinking like, this is like a very strong Christian woman. Like I was inspired by her. So I saw her face and I was like, oh my God, hi. And she was like, hey, have we met? And like, honestly, she wouldn't have remembered me, but I had seen her around church a lot. And just from that one time, we were like in a group of people talking, that stuck with me. And I had a lot of respect for her. She was nowhere near worldwide at that time. Like, she was maybe 19 at that time. And so now she's, in her 20s and married. So I show up at their apartment, and who would have been our upline, they were Ruby at the time, I believe, and it was just the husband, so it was, Daryl, and so Daryl does the board plan for us. At the end of it, he was like, "Hey, so what did you think?" I mean, it was in an apartment, so it was a small group. He was like, "Hey, so what did you, think about the board plan?" And I was like, "I really love that. This is a Christian organization." And he was like, well, it's not a Christian organization. Like, we accept everybody." But that's just to say, if that was my comment to his question, he was talking about God, and he was integrating Christianity and God's purpose and that kind of thing into the board plan. And later, having attended like 100 of his board plans since then, he 100% did that. But I was excited because I'm thinking, like, yeah, these are Christian people pursuing business in an integrous way. That was my assumption, because they were Christian and dressed well. Like, I just thought, like, hey, we've got our lives together, and business wasn't my form of dress. Like, I like to dress a little more fun or like funky, but because I was in the fashion industry, so I like to try trends and stuff like that. So that was kind of like a downer to like change that, but I still perceive them as very put together. So I just thought that was my takeaway, that this is an integrous Christian group. I get they don't want to call themselves Christian, like, exclusively, but they're obviously teaching Christian, ways to go about business. That was like what I took away from it.
Yeah. What you're absolutely right. When you say that when he asked you and that was your response, he obviously gave you a reason to say
Yeah.
something like that, which it aligned with your views. This could not have been a better place for you to have been in if this is what they had presented to you at that first board plan. And the club owner, I call him Taylor, he was very similar in his board plan. He always made mention of God, that and he always gave a quick little disclaimer, and I feel like they do it maybe for legal purposes or whatever, but he's like, it doesn't have to be your faith, it's our faith, we think our Father God, all the other things, and but what's funny is they thank the crown for the same way. So but it's really interesting
Yeah.
because it I'm sure now that you've left, you realize that it is a very heavily, and obviously too, not what, because as you we had talked about this before, where you're a Christian person and they try to come off as a type of Christian organization, but they are a very cult-like environment. Like, they use Christianity against people. It's so heavily incorporated into everything they do. Hell, they have at Spring Leadership John Maxwell come in. If you're not familiar with who John Maxwell is, he's a pastor and a leadership author, and not devoid of any sort of blame here as well. I wanted to believe John Maxwell is such a good dude, and then I started to realize that he's probably making a commission because all of his books are being sold through the apps, and they're being sold at other lines of affiliation in their quote tools rooms. So sorry, John Maxwell. My personal opinion is that you're not as good of a guy as I thought you were, and I'm sad about that.
To just talk about him for 1 second, absolutely. So as I've like left and started looking into these other MLMs, because I wanted to see I started realizing they were very similar. So we're taught in Worldwide that we are top of the top. We've got this, we're elite. We've got this process that nobody else has. We qualify people, like all this kind of stuff. And we've got this really amazing personal growth system that essentially is molding all these very integrous people to run business and be like, they wanted this to take over America. Like, that's their agenda, and that's not hidden. So John Maxwell is, one of the big key things that they use to pull people into going to functions, like people who are not in the business, that are maybe in the process. They say, John Maxwell only goes to a handful of these per year, and he chooses us. No, I've seen him at every single MLM conference that I have looked into. Like, I want to say like Monat or Arbonne or something like that, but or all of them, he's going to them. And that audio that we're getting from him every month is going to all of these other, like, I have no doubt that I'm alleging this, but I have no doubt it is going to all of these other MLMs as well.
Yep, actually, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe we should say this is alleged, but nope, not at all. You
Yeah.
are right. Because you know what's funny is I have not looked as far into this as I wish that I would have. But you guys, Ashley's onto something here. I found a on the Arbonne official Facebook page, they have an ad from 2021 that says our special guest speaker is John Maxwell. No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
What a bombshell. Because the thing is I always thought that he just spoke for worldwide. I had talked to BWW as well, and they had not seen John Maxwell didn't come to their functions, but they sold their books at their functions in what they called their tools room. Because what's interesting is Brit Worldwide came before Worldwide, but they
Mhm.
are so far behind Worldwide. It's so
Yeah.
interesting that they still had physical copies of CDs and books
Oh,
all
wow.
being sold up until like 2018 when they finally switched over to their apps. But this is not exclusive to us. And that is such a shocker to me because I didn't know that. This
Mhm.
is absolutely right here in front of me. Special guest speaker, John Maxwell at Arbonne. He's an MLM speaker.
He's an
Y'all,
MLM.
that's devastating. So that kind of speaks to as well that obviously Worldwide's not the only one that's pushing this Christianity in their way, because John Maxwell he's a pastor.
Yeah.
He has his views in every single one of his books. In fact, he even says, "I'm going to tell you that this portion to skip to this page if you want to ignore the preaching that he does." Like that's actually what happens in some of his books. But that's how they're using, in my opinion, that's how they're using Christianity to manipulate people, because John Maxwell and using his name, but to now learn that he is in other MLM speaking, you guys.
Yeah.
It goes deep.
Yeah, he's getting, I mean, we paid extra on Premier membership to, I mean, it wasn't like asked, but for some reason it was itemized differently that his audio was an extra fee. So he's getting that money, monthly from all of Worldwide, I'm sure, or some portion of it, and here's the thing, John Maxwell is allowed to speak wherever he wants. This is where
Yeah.
you have to start recognizing, though, like, why does Worldwide continue to lie about who is getting paid, what is so exclusive, what is not exclusive, it's just I just started seeing some lies being revealed, and I think that's what really had me take like a hard look at what was really like going on. Um,
Yeah.
with the Christianity,
Wow.
yeah, with the Christianity too. So Daryl, who I told you did my first board plan that I went to, and he was Ruby at the time. By the time I left in 2020, him and his wife, Katie, had just gone diamond. So Katie and Daryl, um, talked about their marriage and how great their marriage was because of this system, as did a lot of married, if not all, people that I ever heard speak on a worldwide stage. They gave all the glory to God and worldwide that their marriage was where it was today. And so, first of all, financial independence at board plans is preached as the best thing you could achieve in your life, because, and this is repeated at every board plan, if there is a problem that time can't solve, and there's another thing they say, that money, what is it, that time can't solve, like money can, or if money can't solve it, time can, but you need financial freedom to be able to give your time or your money. So really that goes back to money, because what this business what you need from this business is the money to have the time, right? So they start chipping away at every authority figure in your life. So it starts with that. And then, it's like, okay, well, these are some assumptions that as I've talked to other people, it wasn't me who just had it. So it was like, okay, well, my pastor isn't teaching people how to be financially free. He's letting people continue to be slaves in their day-to-day life. Why not, instead of just, and they kind of put down people that just take donations instead of creating financial independence for themselves. Who does that apply to? Your pastor, where you give a tithe that most people consider a donation, so they're chipping away at all of the authority figures. And then with the marriage, if it wasn't for the system and the mentorship, we would not have the marriage. I would not want a husband. I would not want a wife who is not being mentored. How would they know how to treat me correctly? So who does that take authority away from? Your parents. And maybe you don't respect your parents' relationship. Don't get me wrong. I love my parents and my step parents, but there are things that I wanted for my future marriage, and I'm still single, that, I wanted to just learn maybe better ways to go about things. And that's what they claimed to have. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just like, okay, now I'm in it. I, they're position themselves in a place of spiritual authority above your pastor, in a place of marriage advice that your parents can't even give you. Don't even listen. Why would you listen to someone who's not who hasn't achieved what you want to achieve? And that one
Yeah.
statement is how they undercut everybody else in your life.
Yeah. Because they don't have the fruit on the tree, is what they would say.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's unfortunate because it's so true. And we had, I think, talked about the family rifts that we had seen other people go through. I think both of us had talked about how we're both very fortunate that this didn't break apart our family dynamics the way that they probably could have. I know for me personally as well, like my dad and I have had pretty in-depth discussions actually. Probably by the time this episode comes out, my dad's will have come out, where I talked to my dad about what it was like to be the parent of a worldwide dream builder. And I just remember so pompously that I was like, no, my dad's like on his third marriage and he's been at his job for the third, or he's on his, yeah, for the 30th year in a row. Like, this guy can't give me advice. But no, let me tell you, divorce, as much as people want to criticize divorce, and maybe it goes against some people's viewpoints, but if you're in a toxic, abusive relationship, please leave. Do not think that divorce is not an option for you. Like, I am so appalled at the fact that Worldwide will preach that you can just heal these things. That's a whole nother tangent of things that I've heard from my upline. But they would say, don't listen to your dad. And I'm thinking now about all of the things that Worldwide tried to tell me that my dad couldn't do for me. And my dad did everything for me that Worldwide said that they could do. My dad helped me buy a car cash. Why? Because I had bad credit when I came out, but he helped me do it. He's helped me build my credit score up. He has helped me, figure out how to save, what is it going to look like when I buy a house? Like, how am I going to get to that point? Like, things that Worldwide claimed that they could do and that I should never go to my dad for, they never did for me. But they do. They plant that seed of doubt for like you said, chipping away. I love the way that you said that. It's so perfect. Every authority figure, any person that you look up to in your life, they will do everything that they can to isolate you from them because they have the fruit on the tree and you don't. In fact, I'm going to go back to this audio if you guys haven't heard it. Within like the person who's even just introducing the club owner as he's talking in this very first audio, he's openly saying that the club owner's mom, she retired early from real estate and he does not listen to her. He does not take advice from her because she quote does not live the life that he wants. And it's like, why are we saying these things? Because they want us to stop listening to our parents to further their agenda, that's so wild. And like you said, this is not what you saw at first.
And, just to go back to the whole parent thing, like your parents are going to, in most cases, not everyone's, your parents are the people who would want better for you. So yeah, you are going to achieve more than your parents, most likely. That doesn't discount their position in your life or their ability to give you good advice.
Boom, right with your message right here. Our parents want us to do better than them. So if our parents want us to do better than them, why would they tell us not to be a part of Worldwide if Worldwide was actually going to make us better? That just came to my mind. And it's because a lot of our parents who are quote negative see through their bullshit. Okay. They see through it. My dad did. Oh my gosh, my dad's crazy. And I'm sure it's most parents, because I feel like I'm going to be the same way once my kid starts bringing people home to introduce me as far as like partners go in their future. But like my dad with my abusive ex-boyfriend, my dad said I only needed 45 seconds with that dude to know that he was bad. And I was like, damn, that's not true. Oh, it is true. It is so true. And my dad didn't need more than a minute with my sponsor to know that he was not a good person. My dad's like, and and he told me this behind the scenes. He didn't say this on his episode, but he's like, there's something about them that that's not right. And he would always ask, well, why won't they talk to me? And he's like, it's because I have my stuff together. It's because I have a strong will in my life. I'm not in desperation. Whereas people who are expressing that they want something so badly, they take advantage of that. And it just brings me back to, I'm so sorry that they used your faith against you, because that sucks. But I love the fact that you're so open about that to help spread that message towards other people who join this organization because they want that association. And when you had first gotten around, like we always say, you guys, this is not how it's presented to us. This is what we say after we leave, because this is the realization aspect. But when you're in it, it can be one of the greatest things that you've ever seen for a period of time. So what was your honeymoon phase like?
Very short. I feel like my honeymoon phase was the process. Because I was love bombed. I was told how great I could be, that I would definitely crush this business. And I just look at that and it's like, you're told to do that to basically speak life into people. But it's like, that is a form of love bombing. And and so that's a hard thing for me to even still like reconcile today, because I want to be like, yeah, see the best in everyone, tell them they can crush it. But they know they're doing that to get them hyped up to sign up, and then, really go at this business hard, like hit the ground running. That's what they want for you. So I was totally like ready to hit the ground running. I was a very, very shy person. I was starting to come out of my shell, just being more involved in church. But I was still very shy. So I did get a lot of personal growth out of the act of prospecting, which is, spear hunting essentially to recruit. We called it prospecting. And so it was essentially going out every day to speak to people to see if they were looking for an opportunity. So they are looking for people who are, they say looking, but you've got to be in a vulnerable place to really accept this opportunity, because you don't know what it is when it's presented to you. So that was kind of hard, but I was like ready to do it because I totally believed that this was the greatest opportunity, and I was just going to share it with people, and I was going to be successful by helping other people be successful. And so I think it was going to my first, I'm trying to think of the first time I saw our upline diamonds, who we don't have a name for them. Do you have
Oh, yeah. So your upline sponsor, or your those upline diamonds, those are the parents to the guy who speaks really fast.
in Vegas?
The guy the guy in Vegas. They have twin daughters, and I'm sure they have another child by now. But that's his parents. The guy who talks really fast. I feel like we all know.
So I found out today that they are now in Vegas as well. So
they're all right. They all in Vegas. What's up? The whole family, the whole shebang. So to quickly run through your line of sponsorship really fast, because I totally forgot to have us do this so people have some sort of context. So you have actually the same upline diamonds as Bree, who came on the episode previously. She is also downline from these folks who within recent years, have gone diamond, Katie and Daryl. And then from Katie and Daryl, you had Rachel, right? Was Rachel, and then Stan and Kristen.
No, so there was one more couple that actually went to one of the churches I went to, but they didn't play a very big part in my life in worldwide. So we'll just leave them out. But
Yeah,
then there was Stan and Kristen. And by the time I left, Stan and Kristen were maybe sapphires or emeralds. I want to say they were probably emeralds by the time I left. And they personally sponsored Rachel, who by the time I left was Ruby. And Rachel personally sponsored my personal sponsor, Joe, who ended up leaving and passing me on to Rachel. So
that's right.
for the majority, I was Rachel's personal downline.
Right. And you went through a lot while you were in the business. You had expressed some pretty dark things that you had seen, and hearing that your honeymoon phase was just so short-lived is kind of sad because I would imagine for a lot of people that like the first year is great, but that makes me sad to think that once your process was over, the love bombing kind of stopped, and you're not wrong. Like, it's so true. They love bomb the crap out of you the moment that they want you in their business. You are everything to them. You're their best friend. We'll quit them before they quit us kind of nonsense. They'll be the greatest people we've ever known. But then you start to see things for what they really are, and you were in for 5 years, and you had really seen some stuff, and what were some of those first red flags that you had seen that kind of made you question things?
So it was being that, my personal sponsor was Joe and above him was Rachel. So starting at the very beginning, Rachel took more of a leadership role in my life. And at that time, it wasn't in the very beginning, it wasn't as defined. Like Eagle is your coach, your sponsor is, lesser role than that if they're not Eagle or above. So it was a lot of me confiding in Rachel and going to Rachel for advice on business stuff. And Rachel took a very controlling role in my life and about how I acted and things like that. And the real problem with that, actually, with the dynamic with us is like I said, she is a proclaimed rule breaker. I'm a rule follower. And I just immediately started recognizing lack of integrity. And things that I didn't even know were wrong. So I'll give you some examples. So very early on in the business, we're all told to be like 100 with our ditto like day one. So at first it was 100 PV of personal, and then you have the rest of the month to get your 50 PV of customer volume in. So like I would ask her like, well, what if you can't like find, what if you don't like have the customers? And she just kind of gave me a few ways to kind of work around that, where it was like, well, you can purchase it like for your mom and then have your mom like pay a different bill for you or something like that. Like just things like that, where it's like that doesn't sound like a horrible thing, but there's a lack of integrity there. So I started seeing, I'm like, okay, so we're actually lying about how we're reporting our PV. Okay. And then this one day she was like, hey, do you want to go wine tasting with me in Santa Barbara? And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. I'm like, like some personal time with Rachel. And so we go wine tasting, and then at some point she was like, don't tell Stan that we went wine tasting. And that's not something I would have brought up anyway, because it was like, to me, it was like a fun girls trip, like bonding more of a thing. And so I was like, okay, so that's weird. We're supposed to be like completely honest and open. Like they tell us to fillet ourselves open. And so I just thought, if you thought this was wrong, why did you do it? And why did you bring me along like to do it?
Yeah.
Like, not that wine tasting is bad or going, but obviously there was a reason she thought that it would look bad, you know? And so
Yeah.
So honestly, to this day, like, I don't think it was the wine. I think it was taking the day off of business building, even though she did share her story while we were doing it, or maybe it was getting too close to me. Like, that's what I really don't understand what she thought would look so bad, but she thought there was something.
Yeah.
Um, and then it used to be like I could call her. So a little bit of backstory, she really did my process. So um the process of getting me signed up and everything. And so it had become like a friendship. So I could call her, she would answer, and then it got to the point where I would call her and then I would tell her like, "Oh, I was just calling you." She wouldn't answer. "I was calling you about this." And then she'd be like, "Kate me." And then I was like, "Okay, that's a change." And then I would hear in our huddles and trainings, one thing that Katie, our upline, would teach is you grow and they can either follow or stay behind. So the message was you change, you don't explain yourself to them, you just let them see you, and either they stay in your dust or they keep up with you. And to me, I'm like, I get that as a concept, but when you've built a friend relationship and then you cut that off and you don't make any explanation, all she had to say was like, "Hey, Ashley, this is what I'm being coached to now. Like, our relationship got a little bit too casual. And so now it needs to be like this. So I just want you to know. So let's like keep our communication on Kate." Like, that's all that had to be said. But there was this weird dynamic within it, which was basically like, do not question your leaders. It was implied like figure out what they're doing and copy them, and you could ask questions, but God forbid if you offended Rachel. Like, she did not answer you or take to that kindly, and then you could show up and she would ignore you. Like show up to a function, she would not look you in the face. She might say something in her huddle, which she did do to me. I had told her like I had decided to go on Bumble because I'm not meeting anybody. Like, my whole life is prospecting. I'm not doing anything social. So I was like, okay, well, I can meet someone. It can be a setup for coffee. I'll obviously share my story. And so I ended up going on a second date and meeting this guy, and we talked for 4 hours. I did share my story, but I didn't like drop the message, meaning I didn't say, "Do you want to meet my mentors?" And but so I catered her the next day, like, "Oh my gosh, I met this guy. Like, I've never felt this way about anybody." And I was like, I really think this could be something. Like, he might be the one. And she gets back to me, she's like, "Those are just your emotions speaking. Like, you need to look at this logically. And so when is he coming to a board plan?" So it was like, these people are positioning themselves to be your life mentors, and they're not at all like kind or considerate to your actual human emotions. It's all through the filter of a business and your business first. And actually, it was constantly trained that like, don't even think about dating, go eagle first. And then it was like, and then find another eagle, because you don't want someone you're going to have to drag along with you. Not that you'd have to drag along someone who's not eagle. Like, that's just that's implied. Like,
Right.
that's making a lot of assumptions. And the other thing I forgot to tell you, um there was a cross line that I worked with, and this is a different cross line. So we worked in the same office, and they were trying to have a baby, but they would not share that because, and I remember being in a huddle with her and someone asking about having babies, and Kristen was like, who is our upline platinums at this point, she was a platinum. She goes, No babies till Ruby." And this was one of those people who did not have growth. Like it would be here and there. But as we know from being in the business, there are people who it takes a much longer time if they ever do actually see any growth. Some people sponsor one person here and there, that person ends up leaving or whatever. And our leaders are 100% aware of that. That's actually like the statistic within the business, that only 1% actually achieve, less than 1%, I think it is, achieve
Oh yeah.
the level of platinum and above. And the diamonds, the fast talker in Vegas, he taught in a training to his leaders that you need 20% of your business to not be growing so that you're profitable. So that's what, I don't know if you ever heard this term, Ruby side volume. So that's where
Yep.
they actually make their profit, because if everyone in your downline is platinum, which is not possible, but let's just say all of your personals were platinum, you're really not making good money, because the bulk of
Right.
it is going to the platinum. So you want that side volume to help make up for, to keep you profitable, essentially. So they need people in
Yeah.
business not moving on. Like that's required. And it's not like they force that on people. They know that that's just, there are a lot of people who won't move on, and that works to their benefit.
It really does. And you're the one who opened my eyes to that today. Like when you had said that to me before we started recording, I was just dumbfounded because I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're right. And the way that you said it too, you're like, they have to keep them happy because they're at the very least, what they're doing is they'll say, oh, they're getting around for the association, but they're just that PV amount. They're the ones who are continuing to keep them in whatever qualification that they're in. And I'm like, oh shoot, that's right.
Yeah.
It's really like it's so manipulative. And wow, and those are just a few of the red flags. Like,
Yeah.
you had told me some very, very intense things that you had seen happen. I wanna talk a little bit more about Rachel. I know that it's kind of a sensitive topic when it comes to her, and it's not the first time I've heard about her either. The first time I ever heard about Rachel was with Bree. She had told me that there was just some person who was in Worldwide who had passed away, and that this organization was basically just exploiting her death.
Yeah.
And I know that I'll put a trigger warning before this, but it's very hard, I know, to talk about somebody passing away, especially somebody that you knew. But when you told me about how that whole situation was handled, like that literally broke my heart. Can we talk a little bit about that and kind of what that looked like?
Yeah. So Rachel, so I'm based in California. Our whole line of sponsorship was in California at that time. So Rachel was living here in California, and for whatever reason I believe in 2020, moved to another state. And so but she had businesses in a lot of different states. It wasn't unusual for her to want to move around. That was very much a part of her life goals, to be a traveler. So anyway, she's in this other state where, to my knowledge, I think she had family there actually, or close by. So there was family, but the group of her friends and core that she had had all throughout her life, because she is from California, we're not there. So she's building kind of, a new life out there and building her business out there. Well, she ended up passing away in a hit and in a car accident. So I forget exactly how it happened, but she was hit pretty tragically and passed pretty quickly. Thank God. I don't believe that there was a lot of suffering. I'm, hoping. But after that, she so we can go back and talk about kind of how I reconnected with some crossline, but this is how I found out. The crossline that I was now friends with called me and told me that they had just been told by, they had just been informed that she had passed away. And so even though there was abuse and manipulation that we all felt from her, there was still that friendship that was built before that. So we were all like keeping tabs. Okay, like what is going on with, when is the funeral? When are these things? Like what is happening? Like how's her family being taken care of? Because one of her big like mantras was like, before you go on a mission and help someone in Uganda, make sure you're taking care of your mama. The things that happened after her death were just so shockingly out of what we would have expected to happen. So, first of all, she's Ruby at this time. Her family started a GoFundMe for her funeral. And we're thinking, where is Rachel's money? Like, why is this on her family? So that's still a mystery. I haven't solved. I don't know. But then, so her funeral is planned, and it's told that it's going to be live streamed. So one of my friends watches it, and she was just like, the only person from her upline that was there was Stan, who was Stan and Kristen sponsored her. Kristen was the one who actually, found her, recruited her. Their relationship went back some years, so it was like a reconnection type of thing. But Kristen wasn't there, and Katie and Daryl were not there. The Diamonds previously in San Diego, now in Vegas, were not there. And I know just from being in her huddles, going to incentives, this girl looked at these people like family and like her parents. Like she was making sure to bring them waters, have food for them, like make sure they were taken care of at regionals and meetings, like whatever happened, like she wanted to show like that, she could be trusted. And that's what they taught you. You want to show that you can be trusted, to lead a group. But she showed a lot of respect to them. Like she wanted to be accepted by them because she saw herself as going diamond one day. And she wanted to be on those beaches with them, and stuff like that. And those trips and stuff. And so I was just like, I cannot believe, I'm like, if you would have told this girl 5 years ago that the only person at her funeral would be Stan, do you think she'd build this business the way she did, put off, getting married, having kids, because that's not your priority. You're not dating. You're not looking for, anybody. You actually have to get approval from your upline on who you can date, especially if you're, platinum and above. And I was talking with someone recently who actually knows what happened after that, and it was confided in me. So this is alleged. I wasn't there. I didn't see any of this, but she said that they did have a memorial after a function for her. And so what had happened in the interim was everyone on Dreamstream, which, how would you explain Dreamstream?
So Dreamstream. So, okay. I just kind of want to go back really quick. So when you said that if she would have known that Stan was going to be the only person at her funeral, I don't think she would have joined. I don't
Yeah.
think she would have been as heavily involved. I mean, I wanted to believe myself that these people were so great, that my upline were going to be the greatest people, right? They spend some of our most intimate moments with us. I mean, I go back to my upline, Jenny. She was in the room with me when my youngest child was born. Not 6 months later, we didn't communicate ever again. And to think that we all could have been in this business and we weren't diamonds, that these people would not have even shown up for us to support our families or anything. And that moment of need, that just like absolutely, like it breaks my heart, but it really pisses me off because, like you said, she lived her life for this business and put off so many things because they promised so much.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this happened and they didn't they didn't go to her funeral, but they could exploit her. Like,
Yes. So
that's hard. So dream stream. So sorry. So I had to say that quick. Okay, so when I was in, okay, this was in 2016. Between 2016 and 2017, we had what was called photo stream on the iPhone. They had they shared people's promo pictures where they're like, oh, this person went whatever next pin level that they were at. So eventually they evolved to Workplace, which was driven by Facebook. So it was a quote social media site. So we could follow our upline and we could see their lives where we were dreaming about them. And then from what I understand is as of recently, I don't know what year, they created a whole app for Dreamstream. So now they have their own separate app that is Dreamstream. I don't know what it looks like, but it's basically where they're sharing their life and those promo pictures where it's, telling people who went platinum, who went 4,000 pin, who are new Eagles, etc. So it's a place to share things. And it sounds like this played a huge role in the exploitation.
So immediately after her passing, the big mantra was do it for Rachel. And so they're exploiting her death to get people more motivated to build this business that Rachel never got to complete. And what I heard was being also said was she finished her race. She left this world building the business. She completed God's plan for her life. Like, this is so sickening, to be honest, because her dream was to go diamond, to have children, to be married, to be free, and I'm just like, I felt a lot of unrest in her spirit from being around her, and I just took it as like she just wants to achieve more, so she's keeping herself uncomfortable. She was one of those people who got rid of her bed and slept on a mattress, had back issues on top of that. I don't know if it was from the mattress, but she had back issues. And so I'm just like, she really and this was something she preached too. Be uncomfortable, make yourself uncomfortable, And so I just like, what kills me is knowing that she, for 10 years, made herself uncomfortable, to achieve this 2 to 5 year dream. And that's what no one stops to really even analyze too, which I'm glad I did finally at 5 years, like, hey, this 2 to 5 year dream is not like working, But yeah, so there was that. And then I recently found out that they actually did have a kind of like, not memorial, but like service to kind of, remember her life after a function. And so just to give you a frame of reference of how they would have viewed a funeral, I know people who did miss family funerals and stuff like that, who missed weddings to go to functions or just meetings. I missed my dad's 50th birthday, and it wasn't the end of the world. He was not mad at me or anything like that, but that's still a milestone, and the fact that I felt proud that I chose a meeting over his 50th birthday is like really sad, Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
they preach that though, like, and they'll talk about it on stage. In the audio that I was dissecting, guys, there's just one audio. This is just one of the many, many events that we went to where this stuff happened. But you had couples on stage. You had one who exploited, and it was out of nowhere. She was out of left field. Like, there's no way or reason that this should have ever brought up, but she said that her sister was in a mental hospital and that she was there, or that their dad flatlined and they were still building their business and going to functions, or that one of their family members was in the hospital. Like, all of these things are used to say, we're going through this, what's your excuse?
mhm.
And it's just devastating, but it speaks to their level of manipulation. So what you're saying is it rings true, unfortunately. That's a lot to have seen. And you knew her. And for you to be able to speak on how you knew her, and then to say, like, how devastating it is that all of this took place, it makes me really sad for her, and, I know that you yourself said that you didn't have a good relationship with her, and that's okay. Like, you should not feel guilty for having any of those feelings because, I mean, it doesn't sound like you were even there, like, actively when this all had happened.
No.
But I do wanna say, like, I just wanna add, like, respects to Rachel. Everybody who knows exactly who she is. She was, I did some research. She was 39 years old. She was just 2 years younger than my oldest brother when she had passed, and she gave so much of her life to this business. I just want to, for her family's sake, just say, "Hey, just, like, we hope that we can say, as far as Rachel as a person and as a human who deserved to be treated better by her upline, that we recognize that here." So I just wanted to make that known. But that's not that's not the only thing that you had seen that was toxic. And you saw some really, really dark stuff. And you'd also been told some dark stuff once you left. So what did kind of the ending days of your time in Worldwide look like? And what ultimately led you to parting ways with Worldwide?
Yeah, so when I left, I was not on bad terms with anyone. I had just it was 2020, the end of the world, and I just really started reevaluating my life and the things that I thought and what was driving me in life. And I had actually started to become very interested in um like having a more sustainable lifestyle, because like for instance, shops are closing, so it was like the fear of your grocery shop closing and me thinking like, wow, I really should have known how to grow some food. And so it's kind of like just down that rabbit hole. Okay, how do I like create this lifestyle, and then seeing people actually live it out and look so peaceful. And I'm like, I think, and like I said, family was a huge motivator for me always. So just seeing people spend time with family, build an actual family thing together, like their home or their farm or their garden or whatever it was they were doing together, I thought was really cool, which I think a lot of people experienced over 2020. But yeah, so for me, I just realized money is not the answer to all problems, because what if we went through another situation like COVID, God forbid worse, where money means nothing? You what's going to get you by, one, is your relationship with God, if that's your belief, but also your skills. You can't throw money around when water's invaluable, food is invaluable. And I tend to think that way. Like ever since I was little, I've had like apocalyptic dreams, and so I've just always thought like, what would I do in the event that like one thing, I have never wanted to like really do an extreme change in my hair, because I'm like, what if that happens and I can't dye it? Now I have all my roots growing out. Like I just always thought of like what if scenarios. So that really got my brain going, but it led to somewhere really beautiful where I just had new dreams in my life and realized that like money does not solve all your problems. Yes, you do need money to get by and live, but you should work towards things that are going to leave a real legacy for your family, because when it comes down to it, that whole idea of your business being a legacy is not as easy as it sounds. I believe your child has to go platinum in order for them to take over your diamond ship. I could be wrong. I think that's what I remember about that, but it's not like they just, pick one of their kids and say, "You've got my diamond ship now." So, and then what if something happens where you have no access to these suppliers or whatever? Your business is like, everything is such a fragile line for it to actually fall apart. God forbid something actually crazy happens. So anyway, so I was just more focused on family and skills. And so I ended up dating Rachel and just sharing that with her and just letting her know that, I my goals have changed. I don't see financial independence as what's actually going to help me achieve the things that I want in life. And I still want to help people, but I don't see this as the answer. Like, I just had to be honest because I didn't want it to be like, I don't care anymore, because that's really what they make you feel like. If you quit, um, so did you not want to help people? Like, that's another question. And so I had to make that really clear. Like, I do want to help people. I'm hoping to learn a skill I can teach others, and then to go on and just, read in the Bible that we're all created for a specific purpose. And we're not made to be duplicated, And so it's okay if the way I make money is different from the way someone else makes money, or if I achieve something that's different, there's still that generosity you need to have as a person and help people. So anyway, so she was like, was there something that I did? And I know from talking to her that she asked this to anybody that quit because she wanted the blame to be off of her. And of course, I couldn't put blame on her because that would make me feel like a victim or look like a victim. So I just said, I told her, you know, I was like, no, it's not what you did. I'm sorry. I couldn't build more trust with you, which I couldn't because I just got this hot and cold from her all the time. I didn't trust her. And so so I basically took on responsibility for that rift in the relationship. And she was just like, well, let's definitely keep in touch, like come and visit me. But then she would like see something I posted on Instagram and be like, oh, you need to come visit me. And then I'd be like, yeah, like, how are things going right now? And she'd no answer. So I just don't believe
Yeah.
that was genuine looking back and hearing other people's stories. I don't believe that. So anyway, I kind of went through a little bit of like identity crisis now, like just trying to get back my value outside of worldwide. And because I had put so much value in that as the one thing, and they have you read that book, The One Thing. And so one day I'm thinking about one of my crossline, we worked together, and she was also a personal downline of Rachel. And so I was thinking about Kayla, and I was just like, man, I miss her. Like, she's so funny, and we used to talk all the time at work, and not about business, but we worked together. So we would just talk about friend stuff or whatever. And so she ends up texting me like a week later and saying, hey, do you want to grab coffee? And I'm thinking, oh, she's going to try and recruit me. But I'm like, I don't care. I miss her. I'm just going to grab coffee. So we go to coffee, and she tells me that, like literally right at the end, because I'm thinking she's still building the business, that essentially she found out that it's essentially ran like a cult. And she looked into it, and there are the same manipulation. This is how I found out about Stephen Hassan's bite model. And she said there are a lot of things that are manipulation tactics and control tactics and information control that is used by the business. And she's just starting to see it, and she's not going to, she's going to leave. Kayla sponsored Natalie. Natalie went platinum. Kayla went eagle, but she never went platinum. So her downline, Natalie, surpassed her. So the way she realized this was Natalie, who was a platinum, started to come. Well, at first she was starting to have some issues with things that she was starting to realize. So she goes platinum. She finds out now she's getting paid from Worldwide. And Rachel tells Natalie, don't tell Kayla, who's Natalie's upline, don't tell Kayla you're getting this check from Worldwide now, because she won't understand. So,
That is deceptive.
yeah. I mean, and the way the order of communication went was you always copied your upline. all of them in your case. So anything you told to the person actually coaching you got shared to your upline, because eventually they would be leaders and they would need to know how to coach, and they're going to learn, but also be informed on what's going on with their downline, because you're their business, you know? And so, so that was like something that like bothered her. And she, kind of looked at the fact that, okay, after 5 years, I have barely netted this much amount of money doing everything I've been taught to do, meaning she stood core, all that kind of stuff. And nobody in my downline is making a profit. I think there's like 100 plus people. So as a platinum, 100 plus people in your downline not making a profit or any money. They've given up college. They've given up careers or jobs that were building their careers so they could have business building jobs, meaning jobs that left them open to the nights to prospect, to go to meetings, didn't overwork them so they weren't too tired to do that kind of stuff. I remember there was someone coached to like give up their soccer career, like professional, I believe it was like professional soccer career, and so
Yep, I do remember hearing that too, that story.
yeah.
It's devastating when you really think about the things that we've given up that they do. They coach us to do these things. And what makes me really sad too is that you said Kayla, right? Kayla was the one who went platinum and found out that she's
So
getting.
Kayla was my friend who I worked with. Natalie was
Oh, okay, right. Natalie.
Mhm.
That's right. So Natalie was the platinum, and she's no longer cating um Kayla anymore because she can't let her know that she's getting paid on the tools.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We talk about that, right? How there's no transparency. Okay, so that's not true. There is transparency. There are disclaimers that are out there explaining that platinums and above get paid a commission on the tools. But they're not telling us that. They're not explaining it to us. They don't tell us how much. We had Hope and I had somebody who sent us screenshots who alleged that in at least the Canadian market, they were getting paid somewhere in the market of $2 a person for Kate memberships, and then somewhere around the same amount for the worldwide premier membership. I think it was $7. So that's $9, let's say, per person in your business. Plus, they also alleged that they were getting paid to speak at functions, which we were also told that they were free. They're not paid speakers, etc. So now this person goes platinum. They find out about this secret monies, if you will. And it sounds like she actually had a conscience about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I give her a lot of respect for that, because I know people in leadership roles who have left, and I've connected with quite a few people since leaving. And since Kayla reached out to me, thank God, and we have started to really fill in the gaps for each other. As we think of people, we reach out to them to like ask them, hey, so what's going on? What was your experience? Because we're trying to figure out, like, are we crazy? Did this happen? And so there are leaders I know that left and didn't say anything, didn't tell their downline anything, about what was actually happening or how they were feeling. And she did have a conscience about it. And she didn't want anyone else to like continue to waste their lives. Like, that's what she really felt like. This is, according to statistics, disregard the fact that they are not making money. According to statistics, they will not make money, to what we see in other people's businesses, so yeah, there was that. And then since leaving and connecting with people, and hearing their stories firsthand, some of the other things that I have found out is, someone in our organization said that they needed a break, and they were told by our upline diamonds Well, then how much are you going to pay your sponsor to run your business for you? And you know, once she was like, okay, fine, I'm not going to take a break. I'm actually going to leave. Then they're like wanting to buy her business for you. And it turns out Amway is not actually uh approving of these types of maneuvers where you're moving IBOs around, you're buying out their business. And so I had no idea. And look, I personally don't believe Amway is innocent in all of this, because you can tell them, like, they very much knew that I was being switched to another sponsor. They didn't ask why. We just filled out a paper. So and so is not going to be active, even though they're still an IBO, even though I am still technically their work, right? Like the product of their work. You can go ahead and pass her along. Like, why wouldn't you ask?
That's
For what
insane.
reason? You know?
Right. Well, I think the fact too, one thing when you had originally told me that this happened, you said one thing that also stuck with me was, why would they do that? That goes against what Worldwide teaches.
That
Like,
is
why does she need to make money off of you? Why did she need to have a quote vested interest? Why, like, wouldn't you have just been absolved anyways? That's what I was
right,
told happened. But
right.
that's, of course, because she wasn't directly getting that commission from you. That's so crazy. So,
Yeah.
and I heard from what I understand too, is that it's not uncommon for them to do all of this. They're moving around IBOs more often than I think I realized.
Yeah. And, I guess like what I just want to say is, as an outsider, maybe looking at this as solely a business, you might think, and it was, I'm going to say, because it was hard for me too, just as thinking as a business owner, like, yeah, this move makes total sense. The reason this is a problem is because that's not what they tell you they're going to do. They're going to support you no matter what. If your sponsor goes crazy, we're still here for you. They literally say that. So to then have the table turned and be told, like, oh, well, I really don't have vested interest to help you or to do meetings for you or whatever it is, then, you need, unless we move you around. And so that's really like the problem in all of this is the upfront lies. Like, they're not going to be there. They're not going to check in on you when you leave. I know a couple who had their upline, they're in my line of sponsorship. They had their upline baptize their kids, their two kids. And at some point they decided they had already broken a platinum down line. So at some point, I think they realized, hey, we're not really growing. There are areas in our church we really wanted to get more involved in. There are areas in just life we wanted to get back for us as a family. And so they ended up moving, to another state and getting more involved in their church and really stepping back from the business. But they're still registered. They're still IBOs. They still have a downline platinum. Their upline is the godparents to their kids. Since becoming inactive, those godparents do not check in on their godkids.
What?
They
But they're
they
god
don't
kids. That they
they
agreed to it. They loved them forever.
Yeah. Oh, I
Oh
heard
my
it. Trust me. I heard them say all this stuff. They do not call them on their birthdays. They don't check in. There was one thing that happened, and this was around, I think, 2021, where they were trying to figure out, okay, how is information getting out? Because me and Kayla and another person started reaching out to people, trying to figure out, like, what is really happening behind the scenes, with other leaders in the, and I think they were trying to figure out, like, where this was all happening. So that was the one time that the upline reached out to the couple in Texas, and they did not ask, how are the kids?
Not even once.
Not once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so sad. And it's devastating to think that we really thought these people were going to be our best friends for life.
Mhm.
Because when we first got around, this was going to be the greatest thing. When we're being originally spoken to, these are my best friends. I want to introduce you to my best friends. And it's like, yeah, great. But then 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you start to realize that this is not what I thought it was. This
Yeah.
is so much darker than what I thought it was. I know that we're kind of coming up on time here, but I know that there was something that you had told me that I really wanted you to talk about, that somebody kind of alleged to you, that was going on with these diamonds,
Yeah.
with some
So
sort of like, you want to talk about that?
yeah, so someone I had connected with who had went platinum at one point, she confided in me, and it is alleged that she was recommended to start doing hypnotherapy when she was starting to have these feelings of doubt about the business and not feeling like this was something that she wanted to do. And the reasons were ethical. The reasons she was having the doubts were ethical. And from that whole thing, it started to come out and is now alleged that that same diamond is having other people in the business go to hypnotherapy to deal with essentially their objections to the business.
Wow. Um, wow. Wow. That's a lot. That's dark. That's scary
Yeah,
almost. And I had told you just before I we started recording that I was having my significant other just listen to bits and pieces of the audio, and I was telling him about what you had told me, and I was like, "Dude, like, isn't that crazy?" And he's listening to this. He's like, "This sounds like something that they would play in those quote hypnotherapy sessions." And I'm like, "Oh my god." That's exactly how it sounds, and it kinda goes back to Stephen Hassan's bite model, where they only want us to consume what they approve. Their only books on their book list, only their audios, only their communicate messages, only their text messages, only them. Only you need to go to every single meeting you can, you need to go to every single function,
yeah,
and when you start to have those where they say seasons of doubt where the quote devil's trying to derail you, right? Again, there they are weaponizing Christianity,
yeah,
that you need to be core and more. You need to go harder into the business. And they would even tell Jess when she was struggling in her marriage, when her husband was being abusive to her. This is my personal sponsor, Robert. Pardon my language here, but fuck that guy. All right. Sorry. Had to get that out of the way. I try to say it in every episode. But when she was being abused by her husband, whether it's physical or psychological or whatever type of abuse that she's experiencing, they are saying to her, we'll sew into him, just keep building your business. The amount of times that I heard them say, we will sew into him, just it irks me, because it's not obviously not just in reference to Robert. It was in reference to every male, every person that was, and realistically, and this is just the misogyny that we had seen in our line of sponsorship, where um, basically these people who were messing up were being basically like we were told, like, oh, well, we'll fix them. And
yeah.
in all reality, it did not fix them. But that doesn't surprise me. And I think we talked about maybe it's even deeper into the business where did they get that idea for hypnotherapy? Uh,
Exactly. Where would they have gotten that? And I mean, that is like one of my biggest questions, because seeing this behavior similar in a lot of different organizations now that I'm out, and that seeing more and looking into more, I'm just like, where did this start? I don't think that one leader one day had the idea for hypnotherapy. I like it could be somewhere up the line. This is how they have found ways to control the people in the business. Because a huge thing for me too is, like, as Christians, how do you knowingly go to meetings and lie to people? Like they are actually saying, I don't get paid to be here. You do. Even at functions, at those regional rallies and stuff, they are getting, I think some money goes to the venue, and then they get money, and I think the speaker host gets some money. So they pocket that money. And it's so crazy too, because towards the end, we regionals were once a month, I think, requirements. And so
Yeah, it was around that. Yeah.
our location would have like a once a month thing. Our line of sponsorship started doing these like almost weekly, and charging at the door for every single one. So they're making thousands of dollars. So the smallest room I went in held a couple hundred people that are paying $20 each, you know? So yeah, it's just crazy.
Wow. Cause a that's a $80 per couple.
Okay, yes. And also, what I like just from talking to other people, some of the times these venues were free, and they would still charge people, have to pay nothing for the venue, take the same amount of money, pocket that money. And I don't know if this like even matters. Maybe you can like throw it in towards the top, but um one of the other things that happened with Rachel that like I saw, and I was just like, wow, that is so wrong. She had started holding our meetings in Orange County at a WeWork. And WeWork was a very new concept to me. I didn't really know it. And I was like, "Oh, how did you get access?" She said something like, "I don't technically have a membership, but I made friends with the desk girl, and I'm able to pay like $10 a month." And then I connected with one of her platinums across the country, and she was like, Rachel insisted, because this platinum had a small apartment, I believe. So, and she was platinum, so her business was growing. And she was like, Rachel insisted that I get a WeWork membership, and I was paying $400 a month for that. And she said, well, I get it for my business back in Orange County. You need to get it for your business. Rachel's paying $10, and this girl's paying $400. And Rachel's getting paid every time she goes to that $400 WeWork.
Wow. Wow. This is just insane. Like the amount of things that I have learned from you, it just shows a level of darkness that I just didn't even think was. I thought I had heard it all. But this is just a whole new level of just fucked up. Like Worldwide is not, in my opinion, a good organization. And this, in my opinion, proves it. And of course, we have to say some of these things are alleged and come from third party sources, but just the fact that these things are even being alleged, like I don't think that people who are coming forward about these organizations would lie. I really don't. I think that people are brutally honest with these stories. Do I think that there might be some fabrication? I think they fabricate more than we do. I
Yeah.
don't fabricate at all. None of my guests have come on fabricated their stories. Worldwide fabricates their stories. And they would like us to believe that they want their followers to believe that we are the ones fabricating when we're not. That is devastating. But wow, we've gone over so much. So just kind of in closing here, what is life like now that you're out of the business, and maybe some closing thoughts of, what you really want people to kind of take away from this?
Yeah. So after I, was working through the toxic beliefs that I have around money, because one of the huge things is buying everything debt free, being debt free, and the toxic thoughts around productivity, where you're always staying productive, like TV, movies is not good for you. And yeah, sometimes it's not, but sometimes you need to rest and relax. So anyway, yeah, started being serious about moving up in my job. Mind you, I was in a customer service role, in my early 30s, because I was going to be diamond one day. So I didn't need to progress. So I started being serious about the taking opportunities within my company. And I ended up in a sales role making 6 figures. And, I was just like, I'm pretty sure I have way less stress as a salesperson in my company than I would as a Ruby, that just did not, they don't seem happy to me. That was a big facade that I felt like I could see through. But anyway, so I, got this great role I was working in. I bought a house and adopted a dog, and just all things I wouldn't have accomplished if I had stayed in this business. And, I, have reconnected with some really great people. So we are in the works of starting a podcast. So maybe, we'll talk a little bit about that, at another time. But yeah, and then I also started a business because one of the other things, I don't know if people struggled with this like I did, but it was this thought, if you don't have something duplicatable, you can't help people, because you can't teach them to do the thing that only you can do. And then realizing God actually gave me a specific purpose, and I can go ahead and do that. So I started a little Etsy business. It's called the Happy Babe Shop, and it's on Etsy. And I just make whatever I feel like making, little cute Christian sweaters and t-shirts and stuff like that. But yeah,
Awesome.
so life is, just so much more peaceful now. I realized how much of blessings I didn't see in my life because I was so focused on, life is not good until you're diamond. And so you start seeing your life through that filter of it's not good enough, you can't really enjoy it and stuff like that. And so what I want to say to people, especially if you have come out of it, which I believe I said this in the beginning, but share your story. And yes, it can be embarrassing, but I just go ahead and make fun of myself. When I talk to my sister, I'm like, oh yeah, so when I was in the cult and, I'm just I'm just going to take ownership for what it was. And now I know my sister will recognize this when she sees it. And she has been approached for MLMs and she immediately recognizes them and would not ever consider doing something like that. So if that's all people get from your story, that's the best thing, and maybe they think you're a little bit goofy, but we've all done goofy things and made mistakes. And, the greatest thing is that we've gotten out, or hopefully you're considering getting out and just living life again and really seeing what you do have as a blessing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And we'll definitely get your Etsy linked as well in the show notes and everything that we promote. So I love that. That's really exciting that you were able to take your creative side and make it a business and actually be a business owner as opposed to whatever it is that Worldwide wants to try to pretend independent business owner means, which is so wild. But I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story with us and taking so much time with us. If you guys are out there and you're listening and you want to share your story, please DM me on Instagram at xnct.podcast. You guys can find me on TikTok with the same handle. YouTube, I have a couple of things up. I'm getting things added as often as I can. You guys have to remember I am a mom and I'm busy. But other than that, I'm just so grateful for Ashley, for your time, for the people who have shared their stories with you that you've been able to share on here, even just briefly. And getting to share that perspective. And again, just kind of our thoughts go out to Rachel's family as well. That part of this, it just breaks me so much. So thanks so much, everybody. Thanks again, Ashley. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.